What if I told you you could go from feeling completely behind to walking into the LSAT with confidence and control in just 30 days? Would you believe me? Most people wouldn't, because they've been told the LSAT takes 6 months to master, or they've already wasted weeks spinning their wheels with YouTube videos, Reddit posts, or random prep books that don't even make sense. But here's the truth. You don't need 6 months. You need a focused 30-day plan that tells you exactly what to do and when to do it. And that's what I'm going to give you today. If we haven't met before, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I brought my own LSAT score from a 152 to a 175. And I've helped thousands of students get into top law schools, often with full scholarships. Today, I'm going to walk you through a 30-day LSAT study plan using my LASER framework. LASER is an acronym standing for Learning, Accuracy, Sections, Exams, and Review. This framework works not because it's flashy, but because it's structured, focused, and brutally effective. So let's talk about week 1. This week is where most people either set themselves up for success or completely sabotage their progress. Because this is the part of LSAT prep where it's really tempting to rush. You feel behind. The clock is ticking, and you want results right away. So what do most people do? They dive into full exams, hoping that sheer volume will make them better. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It just makes you tired and frustrated. If you want to score 170 or above, you've got to take a different approach. Week 1 is not about testing yourself. It's about learning the rules of the game before you try to win it. This is your foundation, the bedrock. So for the next 7 days, your job is to slow down and absorb the structure of the test. You're learning how the LSAT thinks, what it rewards, and what it punishes. That way, when you get into timed work later, you'll be solving problems, not guessing. So let's break down what to do section by section. Logical reasoning is where you want to start. It makes up 2/3 of the test. And so if you're short on time, this is where your biggest return on investment is. Focus on the following 3 high-yield question types first: necessary assumption, flaw, and inference. Necessary assumption is where you're looking for what the argument needs in order to work. Flaw questions are asking you where the logic is broken, and inference questions ask you what must be true based on what has been stated in the stimulus. These 3 question types are the most common ones on the test that you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck starting here. You also want to spend time learning 2 key concepts that show up again and again: conditional logic and causality. Conditional logic is where you're dealing with those if-then statements like if A, then B, contrapositives, and sufficient versus necessary conditions. Causality is all about cause and effect logic and how to challenge it. Now, don't try to memorize every diagram or rule. Instead, learn how to recognize patterns. Most LSAT questions repeat the same tricks over and over. They just dress them up in different language. Now, reading comprehension is the section that gets ignored by most students in the beginning, and that's a huge mistake. If reading comp is your weak spot, you want to start early so you can train your brain to process dense information efficiently. But because it's week 1, don't worry about finishing the passages on time. Instead, focus on comprehension and retention. Here's what you want to do. Read 1 passage a day. And after you read it, summarize it out loud in 1 or 2 sentences. Don't look at the passage when you do this. That's how you know if you actually understood it. Then, identify the author's main point, the tone or the attitude, and how the passage is structured. Is it chronological? Is it comparison? Is it an argument followed by rebuttal? Once you're comfortable summarizing, move on to the questions. Focus only on the main point, the author's tone, and the purpose of the passage. These are what I call the global questions, and they are the backbone of the section. You're training yourself to read for structure, not for details. The details come later. Right now, your goal is to see the big picture and not get lost in the weeds. Now, here's how to structure your day. We want you to break up your day so it's manageable. So here's a sample schedule for one full study day. In the morning, you take 1 hour to learn a concept. You watch a lesson video or you read a textbook chapter on a specific topic. For example, today might be conditional logic or flaw questions. Then in the afternoon, for 1.5, maybe 2 hours, drill 10 to 15 questions by type. Go slowly. Your goal is 80% accuracy or better. And don't time yourself here because you're not training for speed yet. Then in the evening, for another hour, review what you missed. Write down why you missed it and look for patterns. Was it the wording? The logic? Did 2 answers seem equally good? Even if you've only got 2 hours total, you can still follow this structure in a more compressed version. 30 minutes of learning in the morning, 1 hour of drilling in the afternoon, and 30 minutes of review in the evening. It's not about the total hours, it's about the focus. But remember, no phone, no music in the background, no multitasking. Now here's what you want to avoid this week. 3 common traps that will waste your time and lower your scores. First big mistake is trying to do every single question type. You don't need to memorize all 15 types of logical reasoning questions this week. Just start with the big 3, necessary assumption, flaw, and inference. That's enough for now. The second big mistake is reading those giant LSAT prep phone books cover to cover. These are written to impress, not to teach. If it's not helping you solve problems, it's not worth your time. The third big mistake is worrying about your score too soon. This first week is just for learning, not for judging yourself. Save the score obsession for later. Now, by the end of this week, you should understand how each section of the LSAT is structured. You should feel comfortable with those 3 core logical reasoning question types. You should be able to summarize reading comp passages in your own words, and you should know your biggest weak areas and have a plan to fix them in week 2. That's it. That's enough. You don't need to master the entire LSAT in 7 days. You just need a solid base to build on. Once you have that, everything else becomes easier. Now that you've built your foundation, it's time to move on to week 2, accuracy. This is where your progress really starts to show if you do it right. Because let me tell you what happens to most students after week 1. They feel more confident, they know the question types, so they assume they're ready for full practice tests. But they're not, because knowing what a question is very different from getting it right under pressure. So that's where week 2 comes in. This is where we shift from understanding the content to mastering the logic behind every single question and knowing why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong. That's what real LSAT improvement looks like. So your job in week 2, your goal is to improve your accuracy, build consistency, and learn to analyze your mistakes like a scientist. Not emotionally, not judgmentally, objectively, and systematically. You are now becoming someone who can break down the logic behind every LSAT question. That means we go deep, not wide. So let's start with logical reasoning. This week, we go beyond just recognizing question types because you already did that last week. Now we're drilling them one at a time with laser focus. Let's say you're working on necessary assumption questions. You don't just want to get through 10 of them, you want to understand why each correct answer is necessary. That means asking yourself, what is the gap between evidence and conclusion? What has to be true for this argument to work? And which answer, if it were false, would completely destroy the conclusion? If you can't answer that, pause, go back, and try again. That's how you sharpen your thinking. Do the same for flaw questions. Ask yourself, can I name the flaw before I even look at the choices? Is this a classic correlation versus causation issue? Is the author assuming something they haven't proven? And for inference questions, am I looking for what must be true, not just what sounds reasonable? Can I point to the exact line or sentence in the stimulus that proves the answer? This level of thinking is what separates a 162 from a 172. Now let's talk about how to approach reading comprehension. And the theme for this week is prove it. You're moving from big picture structure questions into more detail heavy questions. That means you've got to get specific and stop relying on gut feelings. And here's how you do that. After each passage, practice locating your answer in the text. Don't just choose what sounds right. Force yourself to find the exact phrase, sentence, or paragraph that supports your choice. For example, if a question asks, according to the passage, what is one reason X occurred? You should be able to underline that sentence in the passage. If you can't, you don't have proof, and that's a red flag. Also, watch out for extreme language in the choices. Words like always, never, all, and only are red flags on detail questions unless you saw those exact words in the text. Now, here's how to structure your study day in week 2. A sample structure might be in the morning, you spend an hour, maybe an hour and a half, where you choose one question type, drilling 15, 20 questions of that type. You go slowly and aim for 90% accuracy. Not speed, not volume, accuracy. Then in the afternoon, you spend an hour or two on deep review. This is where the gold is. For every question you miss, ask, why was the wrong answer tempting? What makes the right answer right, even if I didn't like it at first? And what trap did I fall into? You write down these answer choices in your mistake journal. And this is not just for reflection, this is your personalized LSAT training manual. If you do it right, it will literally tell you how to score higher. Then in the evening, for 30-60 minutes, you redo the questions you missed without looking at your previous answer. You want to see if your brain can apply the lessons from the afternoon review. This helps lock it in. And if you're short on time, you can compress those blocks. 30 minutes of drilling, 45 minutes of review, and 15 minutes of redoing missed questions. Now let's talk about the Socratic review method. This part is critical, and this is something we use in our coaching programs, and it changes how you study. Here's how it works. Instead of just checking the right answer and moving on, you ask yourself a series of questions. What was the conclusion? What was the support? What was the question asking? What type of reasoning flaw was present, if any? Why was my chosen answer wrong? And why was the right answer right? You basically become your own LSAT coach, and you walk yourself through the reasoning step by step. This forces your brain to build the habits you'll need under pressure on test day. The result? You stop making the same mistakes. You start spotting patterns faster, and your accuracy goes up, often dramatically. By the end of this week, your goal should be to hit 80-90% accuracy on high-frequency question types. You should have a growing mistake journal with real insights. You should be able to explain out loud why each wrong answer is wrong, and you should know which question types are still slowing you down. You're not guessing anymore, you're reasoning, and that puts you in the top tier of test takers. All right, so you've built your foundation, you've sharpened your accuracy. Now we take all that work and put it into practice under pressure. This is week 3, themed S for sections. And your goal this week is simple. Learn how to perform under timed conditions. Because here's the truth. It doesn't matter how much LSAT content you know if you can't finish a section on time, or if your pacing's all over the place. You will leave points on the table. So this week is all about control, time control, stress control, and focus control. But most students approach timed practice the wrong way. They either take full-length exams way too early, or they time themselves too tightly. They panic when they fall behind and then abandon their process entirely. The result? They burn out. Their scores drop, and they start thinking they're bad under pressure. But you're not bad under pressure. You just haven't trained for it yet. And that's what this week is for. Your goal in week 3 is to complete one timed 35-minute section per day. Just one. That's it. Not a full exam, not back-to-back sections, one single section done under real timing conditions. And then you spend double that time reviewing what happened. That's how you build both speed and strategy without frying your brain. Now let's start with logical reasoning. This is where most people lose the most time, not because the questions are too hard, but because they don't know how to triage. Here's what I mean. The first 10 questions in most logical reasoning sections, they tend to be the most straightforward. So your goal is first 10 questions in 10 minutes. That gives you 25 minutes to handle the back half of the section where the logic gets trickier and the language gets denser. If you hit a wall on a question, don't dig deeper, flag it, skip it, and move on. You can always come back later with fresh eyes and the extra time you've banked from the early questions. Remember, on test day, there are no bonus points for stubbornness. But reading comp is a different beast. There, it's not just about answering questions, it's about managing your energy across 4 dense passages. Here's how to structure it. Spend no more than 3 minutes reading the passage. Don't reread, don't second guess. Your first read is about structure, not memorization. As you read, note the main idea, the role each paragraph plays, and any contrasting viewpoints. Then, you move on to the questions. Start with the big picture questions first, like main point and tone, because they're easier to answer right away. Save the detailed line reference questions for later when you've already seen the whole passage. And again, skip and return if something is eating up time. You'll almost always do better with a second pass. Now, let's map out a typical day this week. In the morning, you take one full 35-minute section. Logical reasoning or reading comp. Use a timer, no stopping, no checking your phone. Then in the afternoon, spend an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, reviewing that section in painful detail. For every question, ask, did I run out of time? Why? Which questions took the longest? Where did I lose focus or second guess myself? Then in the evening, spend 30 to 60 minutes drilling the exact types that slowed you down. For example, if you missed 2 parallel reasoning questions, go do 5 more. If you rushed your reading comp summaries, reread a few passages and summarize them out loud. Your day is built around a single timed section and everything else supports it. That's all you need. Now, remember, right now, I don't care how many questions you got right. What I care about is, did you manage your time well? Did you finish the section? Did you rush at the end? Did you freeze in the middle? Pacing is a learned skill. If you track your performance, where you sped up, where you got stuck, you'll improve faster than someone who just keeps taking test after test. So, write it down. After every section, note how many questions you answered, where you felt time pressure, and what kinds of questions gave you trouble. That way, your improvement is not a mystery, it's measurable. Now let me give you 3 things to avoid. First, you are not yet ready to take 2 timed sections back to back. This week is about sharpening focus, not testing endurance. Secondly, you are not rushing to beat the clock. If your accuracy drops below 70% just to finish the section, slow down. Finish fewer questions and get more of them right. Third, don't ignore your review. The timed section is not the most important part, the review is. That's where you actually learn. Your goal, by the end of this week, you should be able to finish at least 1 section under time without panic. You should know exactly how to pace yourself in each section. You should understand which questions to skip and which to attack. And you should feel confident in your ability to self-correct during a section. You are now simulating real LSAT conditions and you're handling them like a pro. Now finally, we're into week 4, exams. You've built the foundation, you've sharpened your accuracy, and you've practiced full timed sections. Now it's time to bring it all together under pressure, under fatigue, under test day conditions. This is where you stop being a student and you start performing like a test taker. The goal this week is twofold. Build endurance and lock in your test day strategy. You're not just answering questions anymore. You're stress testing your routine. You're fine-tuning your pacing. And you're figuring out what works for you. So there are 0 surprises when you sit down for the real thing. Now, up until now, you've been practicing skills in isolation. This week, we test your ability to sustain those skills across an entire exam. Not just for 35 minutes, but for 2 to 3 hours, with minimal breaks, maximum mental load, and full emotional swings. Because here's what no one tells you. The LSAT doesn't just test logic. It tests stamina. Your score is determined by how well you perform on your 4th section, not just your first. And that means this week is critical. This week, I want you to take 2 to 3 full-length timed exams. Now, here's what I mean by full length. 4 sections, including 1 unscored experimental section, standard 35-minute timing per section, 1 10-minute break between sections 2 and 3, no pausing the timer, no checking your phone, no reviewing answers during the test. Simulate the real thing as closely as possible. Wake up at the same time you plan to on test day. Use the same computer you'll use on the official exam if possible, and sit at a clean desk with no distractions. You're not just practicing LSAT questions, you're practicing your routine. Now here's how I'd structure your week day by day. Day 1, take a full-length exam. Day 2, review it deeply. Day 3, drill your weak areas. Day 4, take a second full-length exam. Day 5, review again. Day 6, targeted drills and mental reset. And day 7, rest or light review only. Do not take full exams back-to-back on consecutive days. That doesn't build your endurance, it builds burnout. Instead, give yourself space to learn from each exam before you jump into the next one. Now, the exam is only half the process. The real work happens after you finish. Here's how to break down your review using the Socratic review method. First, check your answers, but don't just mark them right or wrong. Ask, was this a careless mistake? Was it a logic error? Was it a timing issue? Then label the type of error. Did you misread the stimulus? Did you misunderstand the conclusion? Did you get stuck between 2 choices? Did you run out of time and guess? You also want to use your mistake journal. For each wrong answer, write down what you picked, why it was wrong, what you should have picked, why it was right, and what you'll do differently next time around. This is your personalized LSAT GPS. If you track these things consistently, your weak points become your strengths. Now, during your review, you're not just looking for which questions you got wrong, you're looking for patterns. Ask yourself, which section drained me the most? Did I rush through the last 5 questions? Was I mentally tired by section 3? Did my accuracy drop off at the end? This is the kind of insight that gives you a real edge on test day. For example, if you always bomb section 3, maybe you've got to work on your pacing. If reading comp always tanks your score, you might want to start each exam with that section during practice. The goal is to design a system that plays to your strengths. Now, let's say you take an exam on Monday and you review it on Tuesday. What do you do Wednesday? Targeted drills. You don't need to repeat the whole exam. Instead, spend time focusing on the question types that tripped you up, any section where you missed more than 5 questions, the logical reasoning traps you consistently fall for, and the reading comp passages where you ran out of time. The key here is precision. You're not just doing more for the sake of doing more, you're doing exactly what your data tells you to do. That's what high scorers do. Now, let me give you a few traps to steer clear of. The first big one is cramming between exams. Your brain needs recovery time, so review and drill lightly, but don't overload yourself. You also don't want to take exams too casually. You want to treat every practice test like the real thing. Your score is going to reflect your process. And the third big mistake is chasing score jumps. Focus on consistency, not just hitting a new high score. Anybody can get lucky once, but consistent performance is real prep. Now, this might sound weird, but I recommend doing almost nothing the day before the exam. No drilling, no full exams. If you have to study, spend just 30 minutes reviewing your mistake journal or rereading a few high-confidence questions just to keep your rhythm. But that's it. The day before the LSAT is about rest, sleep, light movement, good food, and confidence. You've already done the work. Now it's time to walk in calm, rested, and clear-headed. Your goal, by the end of this week, should be to have completed 2 to 3 full-length exams. You should know your test day routine from start to finish. You should feel confident in your pacing and your endurance. And you should have real data on what to do during your final days of prep. You're not hoping anymore, you're executing. Now, you've made it to the final stretch. If you followed the plan, You've built your foundation, sharpened your accuracy, practiced timed sections, simulated full exams, and tracked your progress with a mistake journal. Now it's the day before your official LSAT. Let's talk about what to do, and just as importantly, what not to do. Here's the big idea. You're not going to win the LSAT the day before, but you can lose it. You've already done the hard work. Now your job is to protect your energy, focus, and confidence. Here's exactly how I recommend structuring your day before the test. Sleep in. Don't set an alarm if you don't have to. Let your body recover. Engage in some light movement. Go for a short walk. Stretch. Do yoga. Move your body gently. Eat real food. Stay hydrated. Avoid anything that might mess with your stomach. Don't take any full exams. No section drills. No reading comp marathons. But if you need to review something, skim your mistake journal for 20-30 minutes max. That's it. This is not the time to squeeze in one last practice test. That's like running a 5K the day before marathon. All it does is drain you. Now let's talk about your mindset, because this is where people psych themselves out. Here's the truth no one talks about. Every LSAT has a few weird questions. There's going to be that one question that makes you think, what the heck is this? That's normal. That's part of the test. The mistake is assuming that one confusing question means the whole test is going badly. Instead, here's how you show up. You stay calm. You move on from what you don't know. You come back later if there's time. And you trust your process. This isn't about getting every question right. It's about staying in control from start to finish. Before the test, remind yourself of 3 things. First, I've prepared intentionally. You didn't wing this. You followed a plan. That already puts you ahead of most people. Second, the LSAT is predictable. Same section types, same logic, same traps. If you've done the prep, you've seen most of this before. Third, it's just one test. It matters, but it's not everything. You can always retake. You're not defined by one number on one day. Take a deep breath, sit up tall, and walk in with quiet confidence. Now, let's get really tactical. Here is a simple checklist for the night before. Charge your devices. Check your test time and login link. Make sure your ID is ready. Set your clothes out even if you're testing at home. Know where your scratch paper, pencils, and water bottle are, and allow plenty of time for breakfast and a calm morning. This all sounds small, but it matters. You don't want to be scrambling for your ID 10 minutes before the test. Remove every source of friction you can. Now, the morning of the test, keep it simple. Allow enough time to shower and eat. Do some light breathing exercises or stretching. Sit at your desk 20 to 30 minutes early to get in the zone if it helps. Don't cram. Don't scroll. Don't panic. At this point, you're ready. Now, after the test, once it's all over, walk away. Don't go to Reddit. Don't try to calculate your raw score. Don't obsess over that one reading comp question you flagged. Your job is done. Celebrate it. Take a walk, call a friend, eat something good, then give yourself at least 24 hours before you think about what's next. Now, let me leave you with 5 principles that apply on test day and in law school and beyond. First, progress beats perfection. You didn't need to be perfect every single day. You just needed to keep moving forward. Second, discipline builds confidence. If you showed up consistently, that discipline will carry you through when things get tough. Number 3, mastery is about depth, not volume. The students who score 170 and above don't do more questions, they just understand them better. Number 4, the test doesn't define you. Of course, your score matters, but it's not your entire identity. Whether you crush it or not, you're still moving toward your goals. Number 5, you now know how to do hard things. You followed a plan, showed up when it wasn't convenient, and made yourself better. And that skill is more valuable than any score.